So welcome back to the final day in Sibenik in Croatia. We've had a fantastic regatta so far. It's the first event of the 2018 52 Super Series season. We've got Quantum Racing leading the field on 22 points. Sled on cue for second just now. They're just 2 points up on Platoon. And 52 Super Series champions are in fourth place. That's Azura. And Jenny Tulloch is on the water. Jenny, how are things looking? We've got just over 1 minute to go.
Yeah, we actually just heard the 1 minute horn as you were saying that. The breeze has finally filled. Exactly. We have just about 6 knots, so just enough for them to start racing. And considering the warning signal, the last warning for the day could be at 3 o'clock, Maria decided to go and send them. And yeah, as you said, it's going to be a good battle today. I think Quantum Racing already battling a little bit middle of the line. They're luffing Azura. 36 seconds to go down here near the pin end. All week long, these two boats have liked the pin. It's Sled and Poprek, and they're down here again fighting hard for it. Actually, Sled just forcing Poprek into attack. Provezza, the next boat up from the line. Just above Provezza, they've got Luna Rossa, then another Italian boat, then that Quantum Azura duel. And all the way at the top of the line is Platoon and Allegre. But it looks like we've just had a possibly even the umpires calling Sled a penalty. So Sled rolling into a jibe here as they come into less than 10 seconds to go to the start line. This is a 2-1-0. This is a huge mistake for the boat that's currently in second place in the regatta. And unfortunately for bow 23, they've just been called over early in the middle of the line as well. So Sled having to circle, going to be really slow at the pin. They might not even lay the pin after doing that circle. Poprek able to pull off that pin end advantage, then the pin end start that they were looking for. Sled is so slow in the back of the pack, and then just rolling over them, Zhao Huracan, the boat that had been over early in the middle of the line. So a very tough start to the race for those two boats. I think especially going to hurt Sled as they were hoping to stay ahead of Platoon. There was only a 2-point gap going into the day between second and third, and there was only another 8 points behind that to fourth place, Azura and then Onda. So This is a lot of moves to catch back up here for Ray Davies and the guys on board Sled. But in the middle of the race course now, Quantum Racing has a decent start off the middle of the line. They've got a pretty good solid hole to leeward between themselves and Prada. And then just to windward, they've already forced off Gladiator tacking out now. And they've already kind of shot out the back Azura, who cannot tack. They're held there by Phoenix. And Phoenix is a little bit held there by Platoon. But I would give that start to Quantum Racing in the middle, and maybe even to Luna Rossa on just below them. But Luna Rossa is going to have to fight really hard here, staying high, because they've got Phoenix and Poprek below that. How does it look on the tracker, Andy?
It looks, yeah, Luna Rossa, according to the tracker, of just a very, very small lead just now. Quantum Racing in second, Provezza in third, and Poprek in fourth. So really the left, as ever, seems to be holding good early on in this beat. We're only just a matter of minutes into this race, and you said an unforced error really on that left side for Sled, fighting for the pin end of the line. Talk to us just about the risk and reward at this stage of a regatta and at this stage of the season, Jenny, because maybe Sled were just pushing it too hard.
Yeah, I mean, that's the unfortunate part. It's the opening regatta of the series, of the season. So I think you'd rather, well, everyone would rather be Quantum Racing right now and have a 9-point lead going into the day, but you would definitely rather sail a conservative, less risky race. And especially here, knowing now there's probably only going to be one race for the day, that was a huge mistake. And I'm not sure we unfortunately missed it. It was between them and Poprek, and I think maybe they just luffed too aggressively, something like this. We possibly could even get the umpire, Bill O'Hara, on the line to ask them what happened there. But I think a mistake to those guys to make a risk like that, especially when they're sitting in such a tight points battle in so early in the season. I mean, that's the sort of thing maybe you would see happening in the final regatta of the season when you really have to have a fight with the boat that they're fighting with, and instead I think just a massive, like you called, unforced error. So here we've just got Provezza tacking out from the left-hand side. I think Poprek actually was able to squeeze them off finally. So Provezza, who won their first race of the season yesterday, the second race of the day, they were pretty excited going into the day today. They left the dock about 20-30 minutes before any of the other teams, so fired up, and they were fighting hard for that pin end, but they just weren't able to hang after Poprek had a good start. So Provezza tacking out, taking a small duck there of what might be Quantum stern, and Poprek even pulling possibly closer and maybe faster than Luna Rossa. It looks like Poprek's doing just fine holding off on Luna Rossa for us now. Luna Rossa probably still a tiny bit bow ahead, but a good battle out here on the left. And I thought going into this race that the left might be a little bit better. It just looked like there was slightly better pressure here when the breeze started building. But the question is the direction, because we started this race on 250, and the sea breeze is normally sitting more 260 to the 280 range. So yeah, I do think we can expect to see a right shift at some point in this race, and it's just when it comes through. It looks to me like on the far side, I can see Onda and Gladiator have tacked out. There's someone else below them, which maybe is Sled. Okay, Allegre, and way out far right.
On that side as well, with and Sled are heading in that direction. I think Platoon just keeping a little bit of a loose cover on Sled, keeping them just in their sights, as it were, under the boom. But Sled have got a lot of work to catch up. And Platoon and Provetza side by side each other. And in fact, Provetza forced to tack away, I think, from Platoon. And that's not good for Provetza now, looking like they will go behind Azura. So our leaderboard has Luna Rossa, Paprec and Quantum. Basically the three boats furthest to the left just now.
And Quantum led the tack out of the left. So Quantum tacked off. Luna Rossa just cleared their air about an extra 3 boat lengths, and then Luna Rossa's just tacked. So I think we can expect to see Paprec do the same, clear another 2-3 boat lengths here, and then tack off as well. And that'll be the beginning of the convergence of this left-hand side. And they're kind of in a good position here. There's slightly more breeze looking up the course coming down on this side, but there's not really anything more to sail out to. And just as we say that, we see Paprec's jib trimmer heading to the bottom side. Actually, I think maybe it's their runner's trimmer heading the bottom side, easing off, getting their new windward runner ready to go. So they are going into their tack, which allows us to come into the course a bit more. I'm not sure, Andy, if maybe you want to check in with Shimei, but yeah, go ahead.
We could try that just in a second, Jenny, but we're just seeing the right starting to get a little bit of advantage, and we'll see how that plays out. Certainly we're seeing Allegra, Onda and Gladiator. That is our 3 boats furthest to the right, and this is pretty much the pattern we have seen through these windward-leeward races on this arena. The early left is strong in terms of pressure, then the right comes in good. And hopefully we're catching Croatia's Olympic gold medalist, Jimmy Fantella. I hope he's joining us. Jimmy, how's it looking? We're now starting to see Allegre, Onda and Gladiator profiting very slightly out on that right side. How do you see it?
Yeah, it seems I am on the left side of the course following Quantum and Azura. And for now, only who is on the starboard deck? I'm looking to see the cross there.
Shio, I think, are coming across towards Platoon.
Okay.
But I think they'll be behind.
Yeah, they had a bad start. They had an OCS, so they're coming back. But
did you see
we are waiting.
Did you see exactly what happened with Sled? Was it an unforced error, or did somebody push them?
Yes, it was an unforced error. I think it was port starboard. They had a bit late tack to respond to Paprec attack, and jury penalizes them.
Right. So they're penalized, or they were over the line?
No, it was a penalty. They had to do a 360 followed by the tack without speed, and it was very hard to. They stayed a lot behind.
Anyway, how are you seeing this beat then at the moment?
What I see until now, the wind direction is pretty even. Since we came on the water, is around 240 to 245, and now we are in the right phase. I can read 246, so maybe that's why you can see in the virtual line that Honda and the Gladiator in front. But if we see a lefty coming back, then it will be more even.
What do you think? What's your gut?
I think my gut feel is that this time the right might slightly cross, just because the wind is filled in quite evenly, not like yesterday where we saw more pressure on the left side. So today is more even the right and left side, so maybe we'll see some geographical effect helping the right side.
Yeah. whose position do you like at the moment in terms of the top 3, top 4? I think Platoon sitting fairly conservatively in that group, more in the middle just now. And just now, it's a great extent. It's about the long-term game, isn't it? Isn't it about the season rather than closing out a good or even a podium in this regatta?
Exactly. Yeah, I can see Quantum doing their own tactics again. Their usual tactics: conservative start by the mid lane. They follow together with a group, and then they are using their strength, and that is the boat speed. So if you ask me, I would position myself where the Quantum is, or even Phoenix. So middle of the course. If the lefty comes, they are still in the top of the game. If the right passes, they are kind of in the middle. So what Gladiator did and Honda is a bit more risky, which in their position is good to do. But if I'm in the position of Quantum or Platoon at the top of the leaderboard, then I would go more for the conservative approach.
Yeah, looking pretty good on that right side just now for Honda. Honda battling, I think, with Azura. They're 1 point behind Azura. 8 points to Platoon, so I think Platoon might be just a bridge too far at this stage. What's your thoughts on your Azura team just now? They're just a little bit deep.
Yes, they had an okay start. They had to pinch a bit because of the Quantum was underneath them, and when they take to port, they had to duck. They had to duck Provezza, and for sure they lost some meters there. Yeah. So it's not going to be a nice running for them, and they will have to catch up the fleet if they want to finish top 5.
Okay, that's great. We'll catch you in just a little while. I think we'll wait till the teams are round the mark, and we'll get your evaluation off the run, and let's see how this this beat plays out. But thank you very much just now, Chime.
Talk soon, Andy.
So that's Chime Fontella saying that he feels in his gut that the right may come good. Platoon really moving into the box seat just now, sailing the middle of the course, just keeping their options open, but clearly going quite quickly. Jenny said about 6 knots of breeze just now. And Honda, that's Eduardo de Souza Ramos, the Brazilian team, need a good result in this, what's going to be the last race. They've gone 6-8 in the last 2 races. We're in the top 3 in the early part of the regatta, then just faded very slightly. Hopefully we might just be able to catch Bill O'Hara, who's one of the umpires, and see if he gives us his take on the sled situation on the start line. He's on the water at the moment, but may indeed have his hands full. So Platoon, Quantum Racing Phoenix, Allegre, Honda, Gladiator. Sled getting back into it just a little bit. They've managed to pass Chio. So Sled getting right out to the right, getting a bit of a leverage. How's it looking now, Jenny?
Yeah, it's looking like the right is maybe paying here at the top of the mark. We, while we were offline with you guys, we were able to speak with the umpires about that sled penalty, and it sounds like they said, they were attacking too close to Paprec. So I think they had both gotten too close to the pen just before the start line, so Paprec tacked up just underneath Provezza, and I think when Sled did their double tack up, they just failed to complete their lee bow soon enough or hard enough. So Paprec kind of came down against them, and Sled was not able to keep clear as they were still the tacking boat. That was what the penalty was for. But I think I can't quite see how much they've caught up, but I think maybe the right side, a little bit of a right lift
at all at the moment.
Does it still show us that Luna Rossa are the leaders, Andy?
No, we're seeing Platoon, which is the both furthest forward and to the right on the close to the starboard tack lay line. Allegre have just taken a chip out to the right. Sled are furthest out to the right, but are still quite far back relative to Platoon.
And Quantum seems to have lost out a little bit as well in the middle here. It looks like they're...
Yeah, they're just underneath Platoon a little bit.
Exactly, and converging with Gladiator at the moment. I think maybe even... No, they'll be crossing Gladiator, but only by a little bit. So Platoon from the right doing a good job to protect right early, I guess, protecting against Sled and aiming for that second place. Sled way deep, and Quantum decently doing well in the middle will allow the overall scores to be Quantum maintaining their lead, but Platoon moving up into second if Sled stays back. And then the next fight, Andy, is Azura and Onda with just 40 points for Azura and 41 points for Onda. So I'm seeing Azura in the middle left coming across. Not in a great position, it looks like. And Onda was out on the right. They're just between maybe Allegra and Sled. Is Onda doing decently?
Onda doing decently. I think they're converging just now with Gladiator. Gladiator would just be a little bit ahead. Quantum just dipping just a little bit, seem to be sailing a slightly lower line momentarily. This is looking good, quite good for Phoenix as well, just tracking behind Platoon in second. Ed Baird, the Hasselplattner, and the crew on board Phoenix, looking to finish with a strong result. They've been in the mix early on in the first beat in the runs, and have faded at times, but certainly shown a lot of promise. So we're just watching Azura and Onda. They're converging just now. Onda, according to Virtual, has a small advantage, and interestingly enough, between them just now is Sled. You remember that Sled's battle really, in terms of this regatta, is with Platoon, and Platoon really do have the upper hand. We see them leading, I think, round this top mark. And
yeah, Platoon's in the final threat to the top mark here. They're only about 2 boat lengths now, and behind them is a good solid maybe 2 boat length lead. So Platoon is going to be very happy to see Sled in their rearview mirror about 9 boats back. This is a great top mark rounding for them as they come into this red 52 Super Series mark. Harmroller Spear focusing hard on the mark. He stood up, holding his tiller, bearing away now. At the moment, Batman going out, pulling the spinnaker out, but they've got a decent advantage here. John Kostecki did a great job making that right side call along with Jordy Califat, and behind them 2 boat lengths back. Phoenix, as you said, they'll be happy. Hasselplattner, this team is new to the series this season. So on board Morgan Trubovich trimming, you can see Paul Wilcox on the main. And Ed Baird was involved in the series last year, but on board Gladiator. So I think probably he's just taking a little time to get to know a new team, and they'll be happy to be finally up to second. Their best race so far has been a 5th. And just rounding behind them, got the gray bow of Allegre.
Yep.
And they are going to be happy as well. I think with 3rd place, they've had a relatively, they've had 1 second, and everything else has been 6th or below. And just in 4th place now, rounding 2, 3 boat lengths behind Allegre. Quantum Racing, Dean Barker, very focused, standing up with his typical shoulders hunch kind of style, and I think 4th is fine. I mean, they had a 9-point lead going into this last race, and I think we can all say pretty convincingly at this point we'll now only have 1 race because they can't start after 3. So Quantum Racing happy to be 4th, happy to have a 2 boat length gap behind them to Luna Rosa. Both of those teams thinking about the America's Cup in the future, so they have their eyes on each other in some ways, even if not in the racing. Then just behind Luna Rosa, Gladiator really on their tail. I mean, Gladiator's actually going high here to try to get around Luna Rosa. Luna Rosa the only boat to set their spinnaker very, very early on this race. A couple others set it later on the race, but Luna Rosa really actually just set right around the top mark. Gladiator following suit. Onda now following suit as well. Spinnaker up just 3 boat lengths after the mark. Azura was a little bit late to that game, so Azura's not going to be able to get their kite set nearly so quickly. But this is all because of that right shift. The right shift meant that this reach is a bit less tight than normal. It means you can actually carry the spinnaker, and it means the boats in front are jibing. So the majority of the fleet has jibed. Phoenix has not, but behind Onda is Azura. Behind Azura is Sled. Sled's already made a 3-boat gain, and it's back of Sled is Poprek, then Zhao Huracan, then Provetza. So keeping in mind Poprek was furthest left boat. That didn't work out for them. Provetza had been left at times. I think they got ping-ponged up the middle, as you were saying. So that allowed Zhao Huracan, who had been over early, to catch back up. And the back of the pack, almost all center.
So it looks like Prevets are going around the mark in 11th or 12th place. Prevets won the second race yesterday, moved them up to 7th place overall. They really would be looking for a strong finish, but that's really not happening for them just now. So it's Platoon, Phoenix, Allegre, Quantum Racing, then Regatta leaders. 9-point lead going into today, and looking to close out their first regatta win since 2017's Key West regatta back in January. Third overall for the season they were. So Luna Rossa, I think, starting to show just a little bit of consistency as we might expect of them. But this is looking good just now, Jenny, for Platoon. They're about 80 meters clear.
Yeah, you know, interestingly, they're sailing much hotter angle, it looks like, than Allegre and Gladiator behind, Quantum behind them. So I'm not sure if maybe it's getting a little bit lighter down the course, or perhaps they were just slightly uncomfortable with how low they were. It's so light, you do have to worry about the bad air, the kites behind you. And since the two guys behind them maybe had dived a bit earlier, they're just heating up to get further bow forward and a bit more clear.
In general, is there more pressure on the right side looking downwind as you get down the track?
Yeah, the left side upwind, the right side downwind, yeah. But I think, unfortunately, yeah, there's a big right shift. So it's a question of angular pressure. And if the right shift just stays as it was, then it doesn't matter. You come out to this pressure. So that's why we still see 5 boats out here on the left side of the course, yeah. And I think that Azura, Onda, Luna Rossa has just gone for their drive. But the angles are much wider today. We've only got the 6 knots, so they're sailing a lot further distances downwind, a lot wider angles.
So Jenny just saying that the breeze is much lighter today, 6 knots, and therefore downwind you're sailing a much higher angle to keep the boat going faster, soaking down as the speed builds. So sailing a little bit more distance, and still Platoon that lead round about just under 100 meters, but pretty comfortable relative to Allegre, who are behind them, and to weather. And if anything, Platoon managing to soak down very slightly just now.
You know, at this point we've gotten far out on the left-hand side of the course, so right side looking downwind, and there's actually a point when you get too far out here that you run out of breeze. There's some big light patches on the side that we're coming down into. So I think Onda and behind them Zhao Huracan and Prevets are maybe fighting possibly too hard on this side. I think they could see that they could run out of breeze if they stay out here for too long. Onda's actually just capable of staying in the edges of this puff. So Robert Sight eyes out of the boat, making Eduardo de Souza very happy. I spoke with him on the dock yesterday, and he called Sight fantastic about 3 times in a row. So I think we've just seen them roll up their staysail now heading into the drive. So maybe they're seeing the same that we're seeing, that runs out of breeze a little bit here. So far side, or at least the middle from what I can see, is Luna Rossa behind Phoenix. Behind those two, Azura. All the fleet on this side now jibe, yeah. So they're trying to avoid these light patches over here as well. And possibly it looks like the next big breeze coming down the course is actually going to be top right. So hard to tell who the boat is furthest back middle, but maybe sled, maybe the guys just sled and behind sled, top wreck, will be making small gains here as the beginnings of the next new breeze come down the course. Gladiator just rolling into a jibe in the middle of the race course there. I think today is not a day where you can do too many
tacks, yeah.
Jibes down. Ideally, you just get the couple big shifts, but Gladiator maybe was just a tiny bit affected by boats behind, so they've gone for one final jibe this way.
Interesting.
So I'm not sure. Perhaps it looks like Phoenix has taken the lead. Go ahead.
Well, I'd say certainly Phoenix has taken over from Allegri for second place. Platoon still round about 100 metres ahead, but this right side looking downwind seems to have yielded a little bit more pressure. Certainly Phoenix have managed to sail a slightly deeper angle, more directly towards the mark relative to Allegri, but as you say, Allegri and Quantum would you'd imagine would then jibe into the righty, such as it exists as they get across. But correspondingly, Luna Rossa perhaps just ahead of Quantum just now in terms of distance to the actual leeward gate. Azura have the advantage over Honda just now, inside. Honda furthest out to the right, looking downwind.
Well, we spoke a bit about that. The Azura-Honda battle is only a 1-point battle here, so it's almost going to be a who beats who for who wins the regatta overall there, although in terms of the score line, so far Honda has... Oh, no, they both have a second, and they both have a third. So the tie would go Azura's way with 2 fourths. So if Azura can stay ahead, then they'll win that 4th place battle. But behind those guys is a very, very tight battle for 6th place. It's Luna Rossa on 46 points, and then Provezza and Allegri on 47. So mid-pack of the pack, Luna Rossa probably being the furthest forward boats of those teams. Oh, no, apologies. Allegri was up in 2nd or 3rd. So Allegri may make some big moves here. If they stay in 2nd or 3rd, they'll at least get up to 6th place. They probably won't catch all the way up to Honda or Azura unless those guys drop even deeper. But we could keep that mini battle in mind, I think. Yeah. As we were saying earlier, this early in the series, every single point matters, and it's so clear to see some of these teams with their score lines even last year. Teams that did really well in the season had 7th or 6th or even 8th places in some regattas. So you can keep those final points down and make just really small moves up the leaderboard, even in the back of the pack. I think everything matters. As we get down to the bottom of the course here, Breeze is kind of filled now across the course. The holes we were talking about way out on the left are disappearing. That next breeze line that was coming down is mostly filled across the fleet. I think that means Platoon will feel pretty confident with their lead, although Phoenix, looking to have decent speed, are definitely crossing ahead at the current moment of Allegri. They're coming in on port, crossing Allegri on starboard. The next question is, how much will they have gained on Platoon? In fact, Phoenix rolling into their jibe well early of Platoon's line. So this is an interesting decision.
Certainly, yeah, they've caught up quite a lot on Platoon. Remember, it was 100 metres before. They're now down to 25 metres and may just be able to get inside Platoon, possibly.
Yeah, I think that might be Ed Baird going for a little bit of a match racing. Let's jibe early and drive on their breeze, even if it means we do a double jibe later. It's so light that Phoenix can almost affect them here from this sort of semi-forward windward position. And they're definitely going to have to do another jibe back, but this sets them up for what would be a left-hand turn to the right-hand side, which is what paid so well for them last time. So if they can do a double shot, if they can hit their opponents just a little bit longer and then have a nice easy jibe ley line call, then yeah, I think that's a nice call for those guys. I think Platoon will still round the bottom marks in the lead, but I think Phoenix will come out looking like they've made some gains. And just behind them, actually, we're seeing Luna Rossa crossing the bows of Allegri as well. So that right side on the downwind, left side looking upwind, really did pay for these two boats. They moved up from 3rd and 4th to 2nd and 3rd. Possibly even Gladiator, and behind them, yeah, making big gains as well.
Quantum we see in 6th on the leaderboard just now. Platoon in 1st, so not as much breathing space for the Quantum as you maybe thought.
I think the happy news for Quantum is that it's Sled that had a deep start and not Platoon, because they only had a 9-point clearance to sled, but they have an 11-point clearance to platoon, so it's going to be pretty difficult. They have to drop all the way back through the pack to lose this first place in the regatta. Even if platoon wins the race, I think they'd have to be 12th to actually lose the event. The tie would go their way with so many bullets on the scoreline this week. But here we go. Phoenix with a jibe, platoon just jibing in front of them. Phoenix with a lot more extra speed at the moment. They finished their jibe so much earlier, but platoon will definitely have the inside. It might even be an overlap now. They'll have the inside at this bottom course as they go around the left turn, right side mark going upwind. I think we'll see a split. I think there's no way that Phoenix can follow them in that way unless they really think they have to. And okay, all right, Ed Baird really thinks he has to. So platoon going around in first and just on their heels with their fighting sword out. The Phoenix with a huge gain on the downwind. That was a great job for these guys. And as you said, they've struggled a bit so far in this regatta, but their best race so far was yesterday's final race. So finally turning it around on fire. And I guess Luna Rossa, somewhat the same. Luna Rossa having ups and downs. Their best race so far was a 4th, but they've caught up big time into 3rd position, and they are driving around that right-hand side mark as well. So Luna Rossa just going for the 3rd place there. And then behind them, Allegre going for the jibe. I think it looks like Gladiator probably had room there, but Gladiator can't get to them. So Allegre driving and rounding 4th. A disappointing downwind, I think, for them as they drop from 2nd to 4th. But the leaders now going for the tack. Platoon tacking first. Phoenix dummy tacking behind them. Started to roll into it. 4th platoon to go. And then Phoenix, Ed Baird telling Hasso-Plattner to bear away again on port. So Phoenix is now going to get that favored right side. They've just got to hope that there's another right shift to allow them to get into first place. Now in the back here, we've got Gladiator rounding to the right and Onda rounding with better speed to this left-hand side of the course. And then just behind them, Quantum Racing, Azura, and Zhao Huracan. Zhao had a good downwind there. Quantum Racing, a difficult one as they drop through the pack, and actually Quantum quite slow around this bottom mark at the moment. I think their sails just look really tight here. They're trying to hang on the inside of Gladiator, and they are relatively parked. So regatta leaders, yeah, they've got a decent point spread on the overalls, but it's going to be a lot tighter after this race. So just after them, Azura going out for the tack, and then behind that, Preveza rounding to the left-hand side, and Sled rounding maybe even inside Preveza here. Are they going to get room? They are getting room, it looks like. So Preveza going wide to leave the door open for Sled. Sled's not actually able to get there. They didn't have enough speed. So Sled rounding behind, and in the bad air of Preveza, I think they're going to have to tack off soon. In fact, tacking as we speak right away. And then to the right-hand side there, Poprek bringing up the rear after having gone so far left on that first upwind. So we've got across the fleet, it looks like up the course, Platoon has tacked back, but definitely a nice little feint there for Phoenix to get Platoon to tack to the left and to then head off to what might have been the favored right-hand side. But I'm not sure. This is going to be an interesting one. That 10-degree shift that we saw in the first upwind possibly still remains there. So if there's slightly better breeze on the left-hand side of the course, maybe it'll be gains on this left-hand side to, say, Onda and Luna Rossa the way that they gained on the downwind. But otherwise, it's Phoenix leading out to the right, Platoon leading from the center.
Yeah, I think certainly. John Kostecki got out to have a little bit of a look on that left side for sure. See what's there, and if anything, it's sailing a slightly higher angle just now than the Phoenix. But it's so important to go away from a regatta, either with a decent points margin at the top of the table, and so I think from that point of view, win, lose or draw the regatta, then I think that Terry Hutchison will be pretty frustrated to have gone afloat with a 9-point lead and seeing that paired back to possibly 3 or 4 points just now. In fact, they're down in 9th at the moment. And it's really important, you tend to measure yourself on the margin as you leave each successive regatta over the course of the season. That's the real acid test. And I think Terry's going to be a little bit disappointed with that. They may win the regatta, which is important for the quantum sales and for everyone else involved with the program. But it's also crucial to hold on to as much of your margin that you've built as possible. At the moment, Azura just coming up to cross or tack inside Quantum. A lot of movement of the placings in the middle of the fleet just now. Quantum in 7th. So the top of the table just now in this race: Platoon, Phoenix, Luna Rossa, Allegre, Honda. Honda now then 3 points up, 3 places up on Azura. How's the breeze looking, Jenny? Still pretty light, is it? Just seem to have lost Jenny Tulloch momentarily. But just looking at the angles and the speeds just now, seems like we still are in fairly gentle breeze.
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
Phoenix just appear to have pulled back a few meters on the Platoon. At around about 80 meters at leeward gate from memory, and now about 35 meters, Jenny. So Platoon still in command, and I think they'll just come across to Phoenix and tack in front of them. How's the breeze looking, Jen? Yeah.
Platoon killed a bit of their lead with that double tack, but and actually Platoon tacking back again here. I can't quite see through these boats to see if they've just tacked on the line of Phoenix, but maybe that's what you were just calling. But yeah, it's gotten a bit patchier. It got patchy on that first downwind for a little while, then a big breeze line filled all the way across, and then now it's gone a bit patchy again. So it's kind of a snakes and ladders connect the dots game at the moment, and I think possibly Honda's done a good job out on this left-hand side, connecting one puff on the left to a small left shift as well. So I think Honda actually looking really decent coming across. They're easily crossing Provezza. They should, I think, be crossing Azura as well. That's the battle for 4th in the overalls. And they look really, really high to my eye. Like their left angle is hanging. So it just depends on whether they get over into more of a righty, the sort of righty that Luna Rossa is sailing along in, or whether they're able to stay on this left side and on a left angle. Platoon coming back. Yeah, I think even they might have made gains here to Phoenix. It looks like they've maybe just pushed out a little bit more, which is probably just Sankaseki playing that 2 shifts up the middle instead. So they'll be keeping an eye on Phoenix, but now also keeping an eye on Luna Rossa in the middle, and even a little bit Honda out here on the left. And Quantum Racing, unfortunately, still in this battle in the middle of the race course with, I want to say, Azura. They are very, very close to boat battle happening. But yeah, again, Quantum, we were talking about it earlier. They're probably still well clear for winning this regatta, but it's not going to be feeling good to be back in the trenches on the final day.
Absolutely not. But equally, it's always good to go away with a decent result. So for the likes of Allegre, Honda, and in particular, as you said, Phoenix, Luna Rossa, to finish on a high note always makes you feel that much better, even though the overall result maybe weighted down by the early scores in the regatta. Feel like they're moving in the right direction. Certainly I think that's true for Luna Rossa and Phoenix. And if Allegre could get themselves into the top half of the fleet, say 6th for example, or just below, then I think Andy Soriano and the team would be feeling just a little bit happier.
And at this point we're heading up the course, so we'll check in with you guys when we get to the top mark.
Sure. Lovely. Thank you very much, Jenny. So no mistaking the leader. They have their lead has waxed and waned very slightly. They've been up at 100 meters ahead of Phoenix. Now about between 55 and 60 meters, something like that. But it's a fairly light and spotty breeze, Jenny was saying. Around about 6 knots, something like that. Honda seem to be drifting out on this left side. Yes, Chime, we're looking in particular at Honda. Honda seem to have made some nice gains on the left side, looking upwind to Robert Scheidt and Eduardo de Souza Ramos on the new Brazilian team.
Yeah. Yes, I can see from the downwind that they like their right side looking downwind and left looking upwind, and they were fighting for it. They overstood the ley line, breached the downwind, and came hot at the gate. It was a good call, and then they had a free gate to round the right one and push left. And if you saw on the virtual eye, for sure there was easy to see 4 boats stacked on the left gate and no wind there. So Quantum was there, Azzurra was there, I think Gladiator and all those boats going on the left gate. Looking downwind was not so good, and these are the biggest gains Wayonda actually gained. They took the better gate and were able to sail in the clear air.
And in the meantime, a little bit of a loss just now for Quantum. Quantum went round the top mark, first time up in 4th place. We now see them in 8th place. What's been happening there?
Quantum did the jibe set on the upwind mark and decided to go to keep the left side, and this didn't pay off. So the boats who continue on the upwind mark on the right side, like Honda, Azzurra, they made gains. So something similar to the few days ago.
Yeah.
So more pressure on the right side looking downwind, and this is why Quantum lost in downwind.
Yeah. So it's going to be a little bit painful for them, going on the water with a 9-point lead and just losing 3 or 4 points in the last race. So you always want to leave a regatta with your biggest possible points margin.
Yeah, that's. I can see them lots of tacking in the middle of the course, and the wind is always strongest on the sides. Always stronger on the sides. If you choose any side in the day like today, you're gonna gain. And since we rounded the gates, they did, I think, four tacks, and you have to pay the bill for this.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
And what's your evaluation if you're a Azzurra team just now? They're a little bit in a battle with Gladiator.
Yeah, they struggled in the first upwind, as we discussed. Downwind, they did small gains, but again, they took a wrong gate, if you ask me. Yeah. If they choose to let go Honda and take the right gate, for sure, we would see them a bit in front, opening the second upwind. Yeah. So it's a bit of a struggle for them. They are going now on the right side, trying to pick up the right shift, and we'll see how that goes.
Maybe too little, too late.
Yeah, might be too late. But the guys will definitely keep fighting. Looks like they're in front of Quantum, so probably they try to stay close to them and not let the big separation between them. Just thinking long term and points of the whole series.
So what's happening as we get towards this windward mark then? The breeze is more in the right phase, is it?
Yes, exactly. First upwind, I saw 10 degrees shift on the right. Actually, the whole wind is 10 degrees more on the right than on the starting line. Yeah. So that's why the boats are mostly keeping the right side now approaching the upwind mark. So this is something that we saw all the previous days, and all the teams kind of know this. Even the first upwind was a bit hard. Some boats passed from the left. I think 2 on the left and 2 on the right. What is going to be interesting, it's going to be the downwind. How many people are going to decide
to stay left,
to jibe, stay left, or how many of them is going to continue to the right.
So what would you do then? You're on the Azzurra.
I think I would continue. So I would try to replicate the first downwind that they've done, but I would push the ley line a bit more. So try to stay longer on starboard, do less jibes, and try to enter the finish quite hot. Try to keep speed all the time, because all the days I saw the wind is dropping like 1-2 knots close to the finish line, so the boat slows down. And if you come a bit hotter, you can make nice gains.
Yep. Well, here's hoping the Azzurra can pull back a couple of places. At the moment, it looks good.
I hope so.
Good for the platoon and the. So that's Jimmy Fontella giving us a really nice picture of things just now. Just saying the right seems to have paid consistently. certainly at the top of the course. We're watching Platoon then. Platoon of about 25 metres or so clear of the Phoenix. Jenny, how's it looking now? You're at the top of the course, I assume.
Oh yeah, we're at the top of the course now, and it does look like Platoon's called a decent lay line. They came up and tacked pretty close. I think the rest on Platoon's hip have all overstood out here. So Sled, Poprek way in the back there, all the way up to maybe even Allegre. Just still a little bit of extra distance, which may mean that they lose out at the end. It might be that the right shift at the top went too far in their favor. So Platoon doing a good job being patient, coming in near the final lay line to make their call to tack. And actually Phoenix doing the same, but even more so. Phoenix just ducking that one safety mark, and on port tack is going to tack in right on Platoon's stern. But as we've got Platoon, Platoon's got us in their sights, and they're just Harmony Spirit again, just standing up here looking below the boom towards the mark, and then you can hear just there the ease of the mainsail and the ease of the runners as Bauman Pedro Mas goes out ripping hard with Mitchie Muller just behind him to get that kite up. And I think, again, we should see these guys try to set their kites on this reach. No, they're not going for it. Maybe Platoon actually, with Phoenix tacking behind them, it looked like they were close, but it took them a while to accelerate out of the tack. So Platoon holding off on the kite set probably until they get closer to this reach mark. Phoenix looking like they'll be doing about the same. You can see Tommy Burnham, the rest of the 5 guys still hanging out on this hiking side for a lot longer. Now they go in to get ready to prepare their spinnaker, and in front of them Platoon has just set their kite about 2 boat lengths before the reach mark. And then in third place, Luna Rossa holding on to this third place. So finally the new team, one of the new teams here, getting their act together a little bit. You can see Jimmy Spithill calling tactics in the back there. He's still got a hurt elbow. I think he had surgery sometime last summer, so he's got a huge black bandage on his arm. But he and Shannon Falcone going right for the grinder, so maybe it doesn't hurt as much as it's just bandaged up. Yeah. And then behind them, Onda getting all the way up to 4th place. Fabulous for Onda, I think. And actually, someone's yelling really hard on board Onda. No, there's a twist in Onda's kite. So a wire glass on Onda, which is what the yelling's about. And you can see 2 of the guys going to the port quarter of the kite, trying to pull it out on that twist. But that is a really tight hourglass twist. It's Allegre behind them going hard, high above them, trying to roll over the top. Allegre did not have issues with their spinnaker set, a beautiful set. So, and yet Onda's just cleared their wine glass. So I think maybe they'll get rolled here by Allegre, unfortunately. But it looks like Phoenix jibe setting early, so maybe Onda will be okay to then be able to. Oh no, Allegre going for the jibe. So maybe they're just going high to be able to then jibe and clear Onda's stern. Behind them, Quantum Racing, then Gladiator, then Azura, then Zhao Huracan. Those 3 boats rounded the top mark very close together. Azura even, I think, overlapped on the outside of Gladiator. And then just behind that, Provetza rounding. Then, unfortunately, Sled dropping back a little bit in the pack. At points, they've gotten better after their penalty at the start, but now they're back into 11th place and bringing up the rear, the French Le Bleu Poprek Recyclage. So a very close fleet still, considering the slider and the second top mark, but the majority of the fleet all have jibed out the front. Platoon is definitely jibed along with Phoenix and Luna Rossa, and just inside them Allegre, Gladiator as well. And then the boats continuing here on port tack are Quantum, Onda, and Zhao Huracan. So a little bit of a split decisions as to what's going to pay, and I think last time we saw the continuation pay a bit more. So I'm not sure. We'll have to keep our eyes again on Onda and maybe Quantum Racing to see if they can catch up a tiny bit further here, Andy.
Indeed. So at the moment looking reasonable for the Quantum Racing. If they finished just now, they'd end up with 28 points. They would end up 4 points ahead of Platoon. If everything stayed as it is just now, Sled would drop to 42 points and would still stay 3rd. And as you said, Jenny, the battle then between Azura and Onda. Onda would take that battle, move up to 4th overall. So still plenty to play for down this final run, the last race of the Sibenik 52 Super Series sailing week, the first regatta of 2018, and it really has been a very, very exciting opening to the season, almost exactly as we expected. I think we've had 4 different boats winning races, something like that. Platoon won the first race, Quantum the second race, Sled the third race. And if you remember,
Paprec Recyclers as well.
That's right. Platoon have won 3 races. Paprec won 1. The second place, yeah. Preveza won yesterday. And Azzurra, the 52 Super Series champions, 3rd in the first race, but then 2 10th places. Really a pretty weighty opening to their season. 20 points over 2 races is really a heavy tax early on in the season. But so too, I mean, look at Sled. Sled started with a 12th and may finish the week with an 11th, and correspondingly Platoon started with the 1st in the first race and may finish the regatta with the 1st.
I think I'd rather be Platoon.
I think I would too. And probably so would Harmuller Spreer.
And it looks at the moment like they've got this good lead still. They had sort of started to gain the lead back just in that top mark with Phoenix tacking behind them. And they were one of the first to jibe. Phoenix jibed on their stern. In fact, the entire fleet, just as we're talking about that, Zhao Huracan's rolling into the jibe. So now the entire fleet is on port jibe. So a big right shift then at that top mark, allowing everyone to get onto port early here on the downwind. A very long port jibe to the finish line. They will, of course, have to drive back on the starboard at some point here, but it looks like decent shift and decent breeze that side, meaning the fleet's going this way. I think it makes it difficult when that happens for the guys like Quantum and Onda to make big moves. If there's not a big fleet split right to left, then there's not really as much opportunity anymore. So with everyone on port jibe, we might see the scores relatively maintain the same as what we saw around the top mark. Might be a little bit of movement in the Gladiator, Quantum, Azzurra range. Maybe some movement between Allegre and Onda. I think that was Onda rounded 4th with Allegre behind, so possibly that could flip-flop if the right side looking upwind works better for Allegre, but I think still Onda would win that battle with Azzurra behind them as they've got 2 points between themselves and Azzurra. So it's pretty close here, there in the middle of the pack, but the front 3 looked pretty punched and pretty comfortable.
So Platoon, yes, just stretching away from the Phoenix. Top 3 seem to be well clear of, reasonably well clear of Allegre in 5th, or 4th, sorry. Actually, Allegre maybe make a little bit of a gain down this left side looking downwind.
Yeah, I was wondering that earlier as I looked across from Onda towards them. It did look like maybe they'd pulled out early. They'd been able to jibe really early, which might have been bad spinnaker and bad air behind them, but maybe just enough pressure coming down from that top right that it was still allowed them to gain back in touch on the Brazilian boat, who held a bit longer. And I think we're seeing more consistent breeze on this downwind. There's probably a solid 6 to 7 knots across the course, whereas last time it was more like a patchy 5. So I think we could continue to see maybe Allegre make some gains, and then when we see them jibe, we'll have that interesting check-in point between them and Onda. But we can talk again, Andy, here. I mean, we've got 2 of the new boats to this. We've got 3 of the new boats to this season in the top 5 right now. So Phoenix, one of the new teams to this series, with Hasso Plattner sailing on board with Ed Baird in 2nd. Then behind them, Luna Rossa, a 2nd, one of the new teams to the series this year, with Francesco Bruni on board. I mean, then Onda as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing is that these 3 boats in particular, and the level that we expect that these teams to sail at, it really adds so much strength and depth to the fleet, and that makes it ever so much more difficult off the start line for a start, and it makes it so much harder to chip through the fleet, as the likes of perhaps Quantum or Azzurra have been able to do from
in the past.
Yeah, in the past when they've been down in the cheap seats, as it were. Sometimes it's easy, or relatively easy, to pick off boats, and that is not going to be the case this season. And,
I think that's totally true. It's a testament to the strength of the fleet.
And particularly getting off the start line, you know, it's interesting to hear the Jimmy Fantella's you know, describing Quantum Racing's starting strategy. They always try to find a clear lane, don't start fairly conservatively, and then they use their boat speed. And they really seem to be trying to stay out of trouble off the start line. Don't be too extreme, and that seems to have worked for them.
Yeah, and I think no matter who...
Certainly they have tended to start, you know, towards the middle of the line, and that's, you know, in contrast to, for the sake of argument, the likes of Sled and Preveza, Paprec. Quite often they're happy or need to or want to push the corners off the start line. And again, Platoon really the past masters, as it were, in percentage sailing.
But I think that's fair to say on Quantum Racing. I mean, even though Dean Barker is a new skipper with that team this season, Terry and the rest of the team remain much the same. So with trimmers, James Dogg and Picho and Warwick Fleury, they're all so in tune with how that start should go. I mean, how soon and quickly you trim the jib, how quickly you trim the main, in what order they want them, what Terry means when he says this and that. So I think even last year with them flip-flopping between Borgalari and Doug DeVos, it's almost easier in some ways to slot in the skipper and the helm than it would be maybe to switch up that trimming dynamic. It's much the same on Platoon. I mean, we've got those three trimmers have sailed together for ages, and they've also sailed together with John Kostecki and with Harm, so they've got a lot of harmony on board, and the ability to get off the start line often reflects harmony. That. You can use that with Harm tonight.
I can indeed, but I mean, you know, also credit due to Harm himself. You know, an owner driver coming away with second. You know, and winning this race, and he loves it. He loves going up against the best pro drivers on the tour, and being able to take a race win off them here and there. And certainly, I think he will be a best owner driver.
Well, no offense to the pros, the pro helms aside from Dean Barker, but I think the next 3 votes in a row will be owner drivers. So it'll be Harm Millerspear on Platoon, then it'll be Mr. Akura on Sled, and then I think it'll be Eduardo Ramos on Honda if the points lay that way. So yeah, again, a huge testament to how great the level is of all of the drivers here in this fleet, including the owner drivers. It's phenomenal to see them be able to do that, and I think especially it's really cool to see Honda being able to pull off a 4th place. I mean, talking to Mr. Ramos last night, he said his exact words were, "I told the team before we even came that just getting to sail in this fleet was winning a trophy itself." And he said that they never thought that they would be able to be doing nearly as well as they are. And at points this week, they were up on the podium position in 3rd place. So I don't think there's any disappointment in that team to finish 4th. I think they're going to be really excited about it.
Absolutely. I mean, but what's nice about that team is they're super relaxed. You know, they're not all wound up all the time. And I think it's the old management of expectations. You know, we're not going to do very well. Let's see how we go. But they all put 100% into everything. And so to come away with 4th in this first regatta of the season, you know, their job is done to a certain extent, and if they can keep.
Well, talking about jobs done, Andy, the job is almost done here for Platoon. They're half of the length across the finish line here. Yeah, Harm Millerspear turning around. They're not even across the finish line, and he's just given JK a huge handshake and a huge high five, leaning forward there. Amazing. He's just handed off the helm to Jordy, and he's walking around the whole boat giving out handshakes and hugs, and that kite is going to take them on towards land while their team celebrates this win, and I think they know they've gotten 2nd place overall. That is one happy German boat on board Platoon. Behind them here, Phoenix just coming across on port and crossing Luna Rossa, but Luna Rossa was able to narrow that gap a lot. The Italian team fighting hard towards the finish line, but Phoenix taking a 2nd place there. Hasso Plattner and Ed Baird finally getting in rhythm with each other, pulling out a 2nd as Luna Rossa cross behind as well into 3rd. So I think the best race there for Luna Rossa in this regatta. They hadn't gotten a 3rd yet, so starting to come together for that America's Cup hopeful. And then just behind, Alegre, GBR, Bow 19 with a solid 4th place. So they were able to pass Honda on that downwind. I think they did use the right side of the course to their advantage. Andy Soriano and Andy Horton giving a wave here and a little bit of a back slap. So I think they're probably happy with that. They've struggled a bit this week. They had gotten 1 second, but everything else was deeper than sixth. So good on Allegre to come into fourth, and then behind them, Honda pulling off this fifth place. And I think when I see behind them, it's actually, I don't know if they are going to get this. Okay, they are celebrating on board, but just after them, Quantum Racing and Azura are very, very close. Quantum Racing actually yelling at Azura right now, yelling for room. So Honda will be eyes on who wins behind them. If they tie Azura, Azura wins the tiebreaker. So they really need Quantum Racing to get in there and get their bat forward. And actually, I think at the moment, it's Azura crossing the line in front of Quantum. So I don't know if Honda saw that. For me, that's a little bit of heartbreak. The umpires are green flagging whatever the flag situation there was. Quantum Racing just not able to nip that extra point. Azura just able to pip them at the line, and I think that puts Azura back up into fourth. We will have to check the scores afterwards. I'm not sure if they've got the mental math right, but points, yeah, so I think that puts Azura ahead, unfortunately, with 2 fourth places. They had a lot of other seconds and thirds the same on both teams, but Azura had fourths, so they're going to take that fourth place overall. Gladiator crossing the line just in front of Provezza. Sled was able to get one more boat on the downwind. They were able to catch up to Zhao Huracan, pulling a 10th place here then for Sled. A disappointing 10th, I'm sure. As we know, they were sitting second going into today, so they will have dropped, still a podium position, but will have dropped to third. And then behind Sled, Zhao Huracan, and unfortunately, Poprek having a tough last race. But we know Poprek had a great race earlier this week. Excited about their win so much so that they drank the supermarket out of Champagne. But I think really well sailed for Platoon. Of course, an excellent week for Quantum Racing here. A little bit of heartbreak for both Sled and Honda for what was such a close finish behind them. They did almost everything they could, but losing Allegra and then having Azura just pip Quantum meant I think it'll be 5th place for Honda overall. But an excellent ability to get a final race in here, Andy, at least, while the breeze was just holding up enough for us to see some sailing.
Indeed, and so then Quantum Racing win the first regatta of the season here in Sibenik in Croatia. First time we've been here. Jen, what are your thoughts on the Quantum victory? What's been the key components of this win this week?
You know, we talked about it earlier. I think a lot of theirs was starting line. They never... Oh, they might have actually had one over early. They did. The coastal race was... They never had an over early except the one race they hate the most. But they had one over early. But other than that, we constantly were seeing them as one of the top 3 teams off the line. I think their crew work is faultless. Their maneuvers are crisp and clean, and obviously their boat speed is probably really good as well. We've got 2 Quantum boats here in 1st and 2nd, and Honda in 5th. So I think they're probably happy with their sail program. They're probably happy with how they're sailing. I think Terry's going to be very excited with how his and Dean's dynamic is developing. But I think they were just clean. You know, Santiago Lang said it yesterday. He said they're just good. They start well, they get to the top mark well, and once they're near the front, it's really hard to catch up to them. So I think that was a phenomenal regatta for those guys, and it's probably going to feel good for Dean Barker to be able to slot in with a team like that. They're giving Doug DeVos some tough shoes to fill, that's for sure.
That's right, but I think you know it's a known quantity. The relationship, or Doug's relationship with Terry, goes back many years. They've won regattas together, and I think Dean's going to back up as a strategist. And I think it's not such an onerous task perhaps for Doug. But really, you know, it's about the start line, as you say. It's about getting off the line, and that will be the big challenge. A lot will depend on how much practice they can do in the days preceding Zadar. Zadar, we would expect, I think, the same kind of conditions, light sea breezes, and a lot of our experts around this fleet are saying it's going to be cascais before we really see the differences really start to develop. As we get into the bigger breezes, this is very much light, flat water sailing, and the differences tend to be very, very small. So,
well, talking about Quantum Racing, we're just next to them now, and while they may have won the regatta, there is not any celebration on board. It's almost like it's business as usual for these guys. So I think, as you said, there's disappointment on that boat for finishing on a low point for them, even if they caught Azura. Actually, at the moment, we're seeing Sean Clarkson give Terry a little... like a shoulder squeeze, you know, one of those, oh, it's all right. So I think they will debrief this one hard. These guys are clearly in it to do better every race.
The point there is that I think Terry's his own worst critic, and he will be, I think, perhaps most upset about the tactical moves he's called. I think that in general they seem to have set the boat up well, and for the amount of preparation time they've had, the boat is going quick, and he's acknowledged that. But he does not like to make what you would consider mistakes or let themselves down on the tactical calls. So I think that's what that shoulder squeeze was about. Just saying, look, don't be too hard on yourself. We've won the regatta. We're going away with a little bit of a points cushion, and let's work hard before Zadar and make sure we can keep going forward.
Yeah, and I think actually after that shoulder squeeze, it sort of turned it around. So Terry went up and he gave Dean a little back slap there, and then the rest of the guys, and now they've turned and they're giving us some time for some photos and some cheers. So it was sort of like, as you said, he's his worst critic. They gave him the "it's all right, we still won," and now we're seeing some celebratory moments here, which is nice to see. I mean, they deserved it. They had an excellent regatta, even if the last day was tough. They had a excellent regatta here. So
great.
Really well sailed to these guys.
Well, Jenny, thank you very much for all your hard work on the water. We look forward to joining you again in Zadar next month for more of the same. And what a fantastic regatta we've had. Congratulations to Quantum Racing, Platoon, and to Sled, our top three. Commiserations slightly to Sled, just losing out on that start line. They were in second going into this race and finishing up third, but a podium position nonetheless for a team that was I think 5th or 6th overall last season. Thanks, Jenny. Join us again next month in Zadar for the second regatta of the 52 Super Series 2018.